Hello and welcome to another episode of the Portrait Profit Show. I'm so glad you're here with me today. My name is Jim Landers, and my mission is simple. I help portrait photographers make a great income doing what they love. Each week on the Portrait Profit Show, you get tips and systems on the business side of photography designed to help you gain a mastery over marketing and sales, reducing the struggles that most photographers face so you can finally get what you deserve. You are in the right place. Welcome to the Portrait Profit Show. The Portrait Profit Show is brought to you by Digital Pro Lab and Landers Photography School. Digital Pro Lab, you can find them online at digitalprolab.com. For those of you who are in San Antonio, it's a local lab and they are fantastic. And so I want to, of course, recommend Digital Pro Lab and Landers Photography School at landersphotoschool.com. I'm so glad you guys are here. We have some great stuff prepared for you today. Now, before I get into that, I want to encourage you guys, and you can see it going across the bottom right now. We use a platform called StreamYard that causes us to be able to simulcast this show to multiple different places. It goes to 5 different Facebook groups, 2 different YouTube channels, and 1 LinkedIn page, all at the same time, all live. The Facebook pages, though, we can monitor all of them in one place right here on this platform if you give us permission. And so what that means is you've given permission to StreamYard to allow them to use your name. In fact, that means that you show up, your name shows up. If you make a comment, it still shows up as Facebook user. So if you want to remain anonymous, well, then don't click on that link. But you can see it right there at StreamYard.com/Facebook. StreamYard.com/Facebook. Just go to that address. It's in the post that this is in, the bottom of the post. So you don't have to type it out. You just click the link, and that gives StreamYard permission to use your name, and I'll be able to see you. Now, I want you guys who are watching this live to enter in the comments right now, #live. If you're watching this as a replay, please enter in #replay. So you're entering #live. And that causes me to know that you're here watching it right now, not later. And it's great to watch it later if you're not able to be here live. But this tells me that you're here right now. And also do me a favor. There's those buttons that go across the post, the like and love button, which of course I encourage you to do. I can already see a few of you have already hit that like button. Thank you. And then there's the comments, which I encourage you to do. And then there's the share. Share this. Let other people know about it. When others know, the whole photography community is lifted. When we have prices that are sustainable, the entire photography community is benefited by that. So let other people know. This is good stuff. Hit that share. And if there's someone in particular you want to invite, go into the comments, hit the @ symbol, and then their name. And then they will know about the Portrait Profit Show. All right. So take that one off of there. And if you haven't already, enter in #live into the comments section. I'm going to be asking you to enter in several things in the comment section because I want to encourage you to comment throughout this entire program today. We've got 3 panelists on. We're going to ask the questions, and I want you to comment. If they say something that you like, hit that like button, hit that love button. Show a little appreciation that they're even here helping you guys out. And so take a moment to say thank you to each one at a time, or in one comment that says thank you to all 3. But definitely interact with them. Let them know that you appreciate them being here because they can see your comments. All right. So before I bring them on, I want to say hi to a few of you who have already let me know that you're here. I can see Diana is here, and Dave, and Robin, and several of you. A bunch of Facebook users. So that means you haven't either. Well, you may want to remain anonymous, and that's fine. I'm glad you're here. But again, #live lets me know you're here. #live. Enter that in right now. Now, let's. Today's topic is. It's our 125th show of the Portrait Profit Show, and it's a panel discussion every Tuesday, every second Monday, every single month. We move the time from noon until 6:30 in the evening, and we bring on 3 panelists to have a topic discussion. This one is if I had to start over. So let's bring on our panelists for today and say hi to them. So let's see. Let's bring on Brent and Miranda and David. Let's see. That's not the view I wanted. That's the one I wanted. How are you guys doing?
Great.
Pretty good.
Doing great.
Nice. I'm so glad that you're here with us today, willing to share your thoughts and your experiences with everyone. Thank you, guys.
Glad
Thank
to
you for
be here.
having us.
I'm going to be bringing you guys on here in just a second, one at a time, to do a self-introduction. So let's do that right now, and let's start off. Let's see. Let's start off with Brent. So I'm going to take off Miranda and David and bring you guys back here in just a moment. So, Brent, you were we reached out to you kind of last minute, huh?
Oh yeah. Just in time, you wouldn't have had me because
We
I got reached out by somebody else afterwards.
Is that right? You are a popular
Yes.
guy. Well, so you guys watching may not know what it is that I'm talking about, but we have, as you know, we have 3 panelists come on the second Monday of each month, and sometimes things behind the scenes don't work out as planned. They don't go quite as smoothly as you might expect, and I'm sure that's no surprise to you guys because, well, that happens all the time in life. Well, one of our panelists was not able to make it as a family thing, so it's not like it was she's blowing us off or anything. She's fantastic, but she had to bow out, and she'll probably be on in a future one. But we had to find someone real quick, and guess who raised his hand and said, "I'm happy to help."
Why
Brent
not?
Gross. Thank you, Brent.
Sure. Anytime.
Tell us a little bit about yourself. What do you do?
Oh, portrait photography, a little bit of nature and that sort of thing. I love birds, but portrait photography and fashion are really my thing right now.
Yeah,
Through the years, I've done anything from weddings and headshots and that sort of thing to what I just said. So, got my first camera at 18 years old and been hooked ever since. Started this off at
nice.
age 22, just after I got married, and been going at it either part-time or full-time off and on ever since. That's a long time.
Nice. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for being here. I'm sure that you have a lot of experiences and knowledge that you can convey to us. So thanks once again for being here, Brent.
Sure.
All right, let's ask this. Let's bring on Miranda. And hey, Miranda,
Hi.
thank you so much for being here today and being willing to share your knowledge with everyone. Can you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Sure. My company is Butterfly Photography, and I've been doing this since 2009. I mean, I've loved photos since I started in the 8th grade in class, but I didn't actually start my business until 2009. Um, and that's it. Been going ever since.
What kind of things do you enjoy photographing?
Portrait photography is my main thing,
Yeah.
but I do a lot of volunteer work too for our church. So we go on mission trips and stuff.
Oh, good.
I'm able to do that. Yeah.
Fantastic. Very nice. Well, thank you so much for being here, Miranda.
Thank
I'll
you.
bring you on just a moment to ask some questions of you.
All right.
So I'll see you in just a moment. I'm going to bring David on.
Hey,
David,
I'm not going to say
coming
best
to
for
us.
last.
Exactly.
I need more time. I'm older than everybody.
And you're coming to us from Dallas.
I live in
And
Dallas.
so,
But I'm a San Antonian. I'm still a rabid Spurs fan, and I love our draft pick. And yeah, I can't stand the Mavericks. And yeah, no, I'm a Spurs fan. That'll never leave. But basically, I came very late to photography, even though I did it. I had a camera. I wanted an enlarger in a poker game, and I used to do all my own prints. But I was in the retail business for 30 years in San Antonio and got moved up to Dallas with my wife from AT&T. So I needed another profession that I could still raise the kids. And I started doing soccer pictures and little portraits and things like that. And then I kind of fell into the school photography business because my kids were in school, and I did that. I had close to 4,000 kids all by myself. And then COVID kind of took care of that, but it was really time because it was just, I had peaked and it was too much. So now I do portraits, headshots, events if I want to. I do a lot of street photography and fine art, and I've had several shows, some of them in San Antonio. And at my age, because I'm semi-retired, I get to kind of shoot what I want.
Yeah. Well, that sounds great. And you mentioned a little while ago that you have something fun that you do in Paris each year. Did you want to
Yeah,
share that?
I used to live in Paris back in the 80s. So I go back. I have cousins that have a dance studios, and their school year ends early July. So my kids were in camp, and I always needed something to do. So my wife kicked me out and said, go to France. And my cousin would hire me under the table to photograph their shows. You know, they do musicals, kids 6 to 16. So that's what I do. And it doesn't pay a ton, but I'm in Paris and not Dallas, and counts for a lot. And plus, on my own time, I do some incredible street work.
Oh,
So that, I
okay.
mean, when I was there last year and I did a shot of a redhead against a red door. And as soon as I looked, I said, this will pay for my whole trip, which it did. When I sold it at a show that I had here in March. So it's really, it's good. I get kind of go home again.
Nice. Well, I'm going to ask the first question of you. So I'm going
Okay.
to bring that on the screen right now so everybody can see it. Let's see. Here it is. If you could get a message to your 20-year-old self, what would you say about starting a photography business? Now, you started later in life, so you
Much
may have
later.
a different response from than the others do.
Well, when you
But
said
if you were to
20-year-old,
get
I
that
was
message,
thinking I would tell myself, dump that girl you're with, but no, that's okay. I'm sorry, I joke a lot, but you know, I think if I had to go to my 20-year-old self in a Back to the Future type thing, I would tell them, shoot everything. I mean, photograph everything you can to figure out what you really want to do. Uh, you go ahead and, you know, I know when you're starting out, people always want you to shoot for exposure, and it's kind of frustrating, but it's what gig workers have to do. It's what we do until you can figure out what you want to do and what you're worth. And one last thing is have no fear, because it's scary. It can be very scary, but have no fear. It's photography. It's not surgery.
that sounds good to me. Yeah, perfect. Thank you. Good answer. All right. So let's ask that same question now let's ask Brent that same question. So, Brent, if you could go back, I mean, if you had this ability to go back and talk to your 20-year-old self, what would you say about starting a photography career?
I would say attach yourself to somebody who's doing well, and if you have to work for free, do it, because there's so much to be learned from other photographers, and I wish I had learned more. I did attach myself to a couple of different people, and I really enjoyed working with them. But I kind of concentrated on weddings, which was fun at the time. But my big thing has always been portraiture, and they did portraits too, but it was so much in weddings that most of the time I got to be the guy who went out and did the extra wedding that they had on the weekend and that sort of thing. And I would say I would want to spend more time in the studio.
That makes sense. That definitely makes sense. So, uh, is that something that you have done over the years? Is met with photographers and spent time with them, tried to glean a little information off of them, or is that something you did early on and don't do anymore? What's your thought on that?
Early on I did. I met with them. I volunteered to work with them, and of course I got paid a little bit for doing that. But um, in the later years, I wound up teaching beginners a lot of the things that I knew that I'd gleaned through the years. Pricing is one of the things that beginner photographers always short themselves on pricing, and they shouldn't do that. They should cut back if they're not real good at what they do in the beginning. Like I was not very good at what I did in the beginning, but as I learned, I didn't raise my prices in a way that was commensurate with what I knew. And I would tell them, raise your prices commensurate with what your ability is, and don't sell yourself short.
It's easy to do. Yep.
Yep.
Good advice. All right. Well, thank you, Brent. Let's ask that same question now of Miranda. So, Miranda,
Yes.
if you were to get a message to your 20-year-old self, what would you say about starting a photography business?
I would say the same thing as Brand. I was gonna say like find a mentor or a few mentors, probably in a few different fields, so that you can figure out what you enjoy doing and second shoot with them. Shoot as much as you can. Ask them if you could use those photos also in your gallery so that you can have those to accumulate to show other people. And also take classes. Just take different kinds of classes. They're online everywhere, but I would definitely be taking more so I can learn about lighting and pricing. I mean, even just learning about how to start your business in general. So classes and mentorship.
Yeah, that's good advice. So, as we know, everybody learns in a different way. So for some, it's hanging out with other photographers. For some, it's reading. Some people can read a manual and know how to use a camera.
Yeah,
There aren't very many of them.
no,
But there's YouTube videos that people can watch. There are
yes,
organizations that have regular educational opportunities, kind of like what we're doing right now. And there's teachers who do this for a living, kind of like what I do, is teach photographers. Everyone learns in a different way, so there isn't one way that is the best.
right.
Every once in a while, someone will ask me, "What's the best way to learn photography?" It's different for every single person. So for you, what's the best way for you to learn?
The best way is classes. I mean, or YouTube just in general. Like if I don't know, one time I was having some trouble with lighting and using my reflector. I just typed it
Yeah.
up real fast on YouTube and I learned it super fast. So for me, that was the easiest way. But I do enjoy learning from mentors just because they have little insight sometimes. But
Yeah,
YouTube
and you
definitely.
can ask questions when you have the question.
Yes,
That's true. So here's what I'm receiving from what you're telling. If you have a question, YouTube is a great way to at least attempt to
definitely.
find a solution or find an answer to the question. But as
Yes,
far as learning, then you believe that going and taking classes and hearing something that it has structure to it is the
definitely.
best way. So classes are your primary source, and YouTube is your secondary source.
Definitely. Yes.
I think a lot of people learn that same way.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to ask the next question of you. So let me bring that up. Uh, let's see. If you could go back and increase your focus on just one aspect of your business, what would it be and why?
Relationships. Just building relationships with people, with your clients and with people who teach you. And the reason is because I strongly believe, well, we need people so that we can continue to have our business grow. So I would definitely say that it's both your clientele as well as the people you're learning from, that relationships are probably priority.
Yeah, that is definitely a big one. Yeah, building relationships. And what you know and how well you do it certainly are important things. But knowing people, getting involved, attending certain groups, would you say relationships as in partnering with other businesses, or relationships with photographers or organizations, or all the above?
All of the above. I think it's important to get to know people because, like you said earlier, people learn different, people expect different things. So I think that if you can get familiar with the people that you're trying to either learn from or you're trying to take pictures of, and you can get on their level, they're easier to receive what you have to give.
Nice. Yep. Totally agree with that. Thank you for that, Miranda.
No
All
problem.
right. So the same question now is going to David. So, David, can you tell me if you were to go back to the beginning of your career as a photographer, uh, what would you, if there was one thing that you could focus your attention on, one aspect on your business, what would it be and why?
Okay, well, at first I'd written down about lighting, but then I realized that's not what you're looking for. You're
Oh,
looking
I
for the
think
business aspect on
there
this.
we go.
So here, okay. When I first became a photographer, here again, late in life, and I was pretty much self-taught. I mean, I never really took classes or anything, and I was an art history major back in the day in a clothing retailer. So when I started doing photography, I was really concentrating on cameras, how they work, what an aperture is, what the ISO is, and the triangles and blah blah, and the lighting. What I forgot was our business is retail. It's retail, and I grew up in retail, and I understood retail probably better than a lot of photographers because we're buying and selling, and we're selling a product, we're selling a service, and I realized that people weren't necessarily hiring me for my photography expertise because there was very little of that. They were hiring me because they liked me and because I was entertaining and I was funny and my pictures didn't suck, even if they weren't that great. And so once that kind of dawned on me, and I was very fortunate enough to start to be able to do fine art and shows and things like that, I actually helped other people I was showing with they would price things that were, I said, if you sell this, you're going to lose money. And I'm like, don't do that. You're not in the business to lose money. Anyway, I would help them do not necessarily a business plan, but more like a sales plan. So I kind of had forgotten about that. And it kind of brought me back down to my roots, I guess, for lack of a better word.
Well, that is interesting. There are a lot of similarities between different types of businesses. I find it interesting when someone says these are totally different things and they don't even want to talk about the similarities. And while there are certainly differences, absolutely there's differences. There's
Yeah.
things you had to do in the clothing world that you're not having to do in the photography world. But overall, things are very similar. And you using the knowledge and the experiences that you had to benefit you, it is about those relationships and how you get along and making them laugh and making them feel like you're a friend. Those are some
Yeah.
really
Well,
good ones.
it's like I had a couple of shows here in Dallas, and I had wall hangings, but I had, matted and framed a lot of, smaller pictures and bigger pictures. And after two shows, you sell 10, 20%. So I had a lot of things left over. And my brother said, hey, why don't you come down during Photo September? We'll have a show in the store. And I thought, okay, it's just the same thing as if I had sport shirts and I had a ton of leftover sport shirts. So I'm going to repackage and rebrand it, and down they go, and reprice a little bit if I have to. I sold a lot, because that's what we're in the business for. So, yeah.
Nice. Yeah. Great answer. Thank you, David. I'm going to ask that same question now of Brent. So, Brent, tell me what your thought is on if you were to go back to the beginning of your career and focus on just one aspect of the business side, what would it be and why?
It would be people. A little bit of what Miranda says, because relationships build a business. And I would say that an important thing about doing portraiture, which is the thing that I love the most of all, is that you want to build a rapport with your customer or future customer so that you make them feel comfortable, and you want them to know that they're going to get a portrait of themselves, not a snapshot that you went down and got at JCPenney. You want to be what they expect out of an image. And if they want the snapshot at JCPenney, I would send them down to JCPenney, a lot cheaper than I am. But I would say it's relationships. People want things to have for an heirloom. They want things to show their grandkids or for themselves for self-esteem. So I find that very, very frequently, male and female, that a portrait is an act of self-satisfaction, that they don't know it, but they're going to grow through the experience of learning more about themselves, getting a portrait done. So psychology of it is really important to me.
Yeah, that connection is certainly important. Do you feel like you did a good job from the beginning, or do you feel like you could have just put a little more emphasis on it than you did in the beginning?
I think I could have put a lot more emphasis on it than I did in the beginning.
Yeah.
In the beginning, much like David said, it was all about cameras and lenses and lighting and that sort of thing. And when I grew to know that it's more about interacting with the person, that's when things started to click a little bit.
Nice. Very nice. So I'm going to ask you the next question. But before I do, I want to ask you guys, are you guys hearing something that you are resonating with? Do me a favor. If you're hearing something that makes sense, that you can relate to, that you understand, go to the comment section right now and just enter in real quick the word yes. Now, if you want to get specific on it and tell us what it is you're thinking, I certainly encourage that. But at the very least, go to the comment section right now, enter in the word yes. And if you haven't already, comment #live so that I know you're here watching live. All right. So the next question, if you were to start over, what are the first steps that you would take this time?
I wouldn't
that one's
change
to
too
Brent.
much. Yeah. I figured since I was still on the screen. I wouldn't change too much of it. I would stay, other than learning to interact with people more, I would stay in the mode of having a mentor. And I would probably expect more from the
Yeah.
mentor than just technical, because I would want to
Yeah.
learn more of the business in part of that. And then I would want to learn more about dealing with people, because you can be the best photographer in the world, and if you can't deal with people, then you can't be a photographer and be successful.
Makes sense.
That would be what I would do.
What about on the so that's great. What about on the business planning side of things? Would there be anything different that you would do there?
I would find myself a business planner, not just, go buy some template or something like that. I'd find somebody who was a professional at building a business, and I would pay a little bit of money for that help, because back then, if you didn't read it in a book, you didn't know, or somebody taught you who was already doing it, and there were very few of those. The seminars that you would go to, like with San Antonio Professional Photography and such, they were a lot like we talked about here. It was a lot about
Yeah.
how to do it, not how to do the business, but how to do photography itself, which is great. You got to know how to do that, but you got to know how the business works. Otherwise, you won't make it. I have a good story about that if we have a little time.
Totally.
I'll make it short.
Agree.
Okay.
Well, if it's a short one, I want to hear it.
Yeah, short one is that I was mentoring with a certain individual who said, I don't want to do so many weddings. And I said, okay, if you don't want to do so many weddings, lower your price. He's like, you're crazy. I'll be so busy I can't. And I said, no, I'm telling you, lower your price and you'll do less weddings. And he went up on his 50% increase in price. He doubled the weddings in the first month.
Yeah. I love that story.
Added 25% more, and he did that again. And he's like, I wanted out of the wedding business. And I said, I told you, lower your price, man.
Isn't that it seems counterintuitive, but I think there's a lot of photographers that have can convey a similar story, because I did that when I decided I was spending way too much time on weddings and wanted to spend much more time on the teaching side. That was 2013, and I decided that the best way for me to reduce the number of weddings, I didn't necessarily want to do none. I wanted it to be as an availability, but I was good with it being, too high that no one would want it. And so I raised the price to one package. It was $12,000. And while it did decrease the number of weddings that I got, the amount of income that I got was identical. It did not change.
Right.
It was exactly the same, even though I did half the number of weddings.
Right.
So, I mean, do you want to work harder, or do you want to, it's up to each individual.
That's right.
Oh, man. All right. Anything else you wanted to share on that?
Same
topic?
can be said for any portraiture, parties, anything. Same can be said. If you raise your price, your value goes up commensurate. If you're a decent technician.
Love it. Love it. All right. I'm going to ask Miranda the same question. So let's bring her on. So, Miranda, if you could start over, what are the first steps you're going to take?
The business part, the taxes, do I become an incorporated? Do I become an LLC? And have somebody who knows about the business that can explain to me the differences and why I should do what I'm doing.
Love it. Got you guys who are watching. I did not pay them to say this. I know that's what I do as my full-time income is help photographers earn a fantastic income in photography. I didn't tell them to say any of this. This is coming from their heart. I'm loving hearing it though.
Yeah, that's what I would do for sure.
Now, is there a reason why you feel that way?
Yeah, I didn't know about it until years into it, which I wish I would have, because I think it would have helped a lot significantly. I mean, because a lot of things are included, insurance. It's just better all around if you're actually a business. A lot of things are a write-off too. So
yeah. Well, thank you for that response, Miranda. I appreciate it. No problem. All right, let's ask that same question now of David. So, David, if you were starting over your photography business, what are the first steps that you're going to take? What are the most important things you got to get done right off the bat?
Well, it's been said several times by both of them. And by the way, Brent, I'm getting ready to raise my prices right now. So, okay. So when I started being a professional, I was 55 years old, and a friend of mine in Austin, who's a very, very accomplished photographer, said, you need to go find a mentor. Basically, you need to be an apprentice, for lack of a better word. And I thought I was too old to do that. And I really regret it. And somewhat for the business side, but a lot more for the technical side, to be able to work as an assistant in a studio and really see how to do lighting and pre-production, post-production, and all this stuff. I really should have done that. Here again, I was raising two kids too, so it was hard to find time to do everything. But I think that's probably my biggest regret. So if everybody out there listening is probably much younger than me, but if you can find somebody you can latch on to that you really, really like, and whether you get paid or not, if you don't get paid, what you will learn will come back to you in spades, so much more. That's what I would do.
That's very good advice. I mean, it's having a mentor we know is going to cost some time. But what's that cliche? If you don't sacrifice for what you want is what's going to get sacrificed.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and by the way, YouTube videos are great, but I watch them all the time. We all do. And I like, oh my gosh, how do I change the setting, or how do I do this, or I need to move this. But if you ask a question to a YouTube video, it doesn't answer you back. It doesn't. I've never seen one where I could go, can you do that again? Or I have to rewind it or whatever. And classes are great. And I'm part of, I'm not part of yours. I'm in Dallas, but I go to the TPPA seminars once a year, and I go to PPA every now and then. And classes are great, but like in PPA, there's like 5,000 people in your class. So you catch it or you don't catch it. And the other ones, you might have 25 or 30 people, and you do learn a lot, but nothing beats one-on-one instruction. That's absolutely the best. And, you know, I do. And I know you're going to lead into like pricing and things, right? As your next one.
It is.
Yeah.
Do you want to
kind
move
of
into that question?
a little bit, because
Good.
it was my turn to get a double question too. So
It
I
is. That's exactly right. I might as well put it on the screen so people know what you're talking about.
yeah.
Let's see.
And pricing, it's really hard to say what would you change on your pricing, because how good are you? Where are you shooting? Where do you live? What's your competition? You know, who's your customer? All these factors come in. But a friend in Austin, here again, very accomplished photographer, has told me several things, and he said, when you're a photographer, you need income streams coming from all different directions, whether you're going to go shoot architecture, whether you're going to shoot food, whether you're going to shoot portraits or events. You can write articles, you can teach classes, you can give private lessons. There's all kinds of things, but you always need to have income coming in, but it doesn't always necessarily need to be from the same place. Now I'm done on that. You want to switch back there? Sorry.
No, you're good. What else did you want to say about pricing?
I think it's really hard to give pricing advice. Brent's absolutely correct. You know, the higher your price is, the more people are going to value you. But here again, these don't exist in vacuums. So, I mean, I happen to live in a very affluent place in Dallas. And so if I'm pricing portraits at $500 and all of a sudden I go 750, I might lose one or two, but nobody's going to barely bat an eye. But if I'm in a different area in Dallas, that's not viable. I don't care how good I am. And so all these things have to be, you know, here again, what's your competition? Who's your customer? How much can they afford? And by the way, my prices are not set. I'll go up or down as I see fit, and I don't really post them that much. And it's, you know, some people might say, well, that's not right. But if somebody can't really afford what I want to do and I want to do it for them, I'm dropping my price. And I do that. It's just like, if I want to do it, because again, I shoot what I want. Somebody else, like I'm going to go shoot an event, and she said, just bill me. She's going to get billed because I know she can afford it. And she never asked the price, nor have I given it to her. So I'll see what I do and I'll bill accordingly and then some. It's just the way I work my business. It's, you know, the buck stops here.
And that goes to show that there is no one right way to price.
There's no formula. There's no formula in this.
I mean, there are, for each individual, there's things that are right and things that work and things that don't. But as far as giving the entire portrait industry, this is your price, it doesn't work that way.
Right.
We're all doing different things. You
do the what do you call it? In-home sales, portraits. And that's a whole different ballgame. And you can't compare that to somebody doing headshots in the park or whatever. It's not the same thing. It's a different business. You know, it's like a Ferrari to a Chevy, I guess. I mean, you know, they'll get you where you're going, but how do you want to get there? You know, what's your final price? So yeah, there's no one formula for all that. And when you're in when you're your own boss, it's your own business. I think you have to be flexible.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Hey, we ran clothing. I ran, you know, up to 5 clothing stores, and we made deals all the time. Had to. It just depends, especially dealing with people coming up from south of the border. They always wanted a deal. They call it pilon in Spanish, you know, right? This is what you do. It's becoming less and less though. But anyway.
Yeah, I like
to part here.
You're good. I like to compare sometimes to other industries when I'm talking about photography, because we can relate to different things. You know, it's not one of those photographer. That may be how some clients view us, but the fact is we're just as varied as any other type of industry. Let's say it's restaurants. There are fast food level photographers. There's Chili's level photographers, there's steakhouse level photographers and country club level photographers. We come in different ways, and that doesn't mean one is better than the other. The McDonald's level photographer, if they have enough volume, are going to do just fine. They're going to do great.
The money in volume photography is obscene. It's obscene. And I mean, I did. In fact, what actually got me out of volume photography was when I did a seminar at TPPA. I actually won a free seminar at PPA. It was right before COVID, and then it took 2 years. And after sitting for a week and learning about volume photography, it was go big or go home, and I decided to go home. And because at my age, but once you, the money involved in this, I mean, it's a lot of work, and you have to have a lot of people to do this, but the money is obscene. It's you wouldn't believe me if I told you what the look. My kid graduated Highland Park, and they have a company called Flash Photography, and they have it set up where they have every kid coded in their pictures. They're taking all these they're doing this. When I looked at their pricing thing, they made easily $35,000-$40,000 that night with one main photographer and 2 helpers photographing and working about 4 hours. Easily $35,000 to $40,000. I mean, I'm telling you, it's obscene money. Trying to get in there and get your foot in that door is not easy, but and it's very high tech. But they were just shooting it. Excuse me, crappy Nikon cameras with really dinky flashes. I mean, in a cheap little backboard. I mean, their expense structure was nothing. And when they and people know me around here as a photographer, and they kept emailing me telling me my prices were too high. I said, this is not me. I was there for the school taking pictures to be nice and whatever. Those aren't my prices, but I mean, oh my gosh, yeah, it's obscene. I still keep getting emails from my son that they're going to delete his pictures, and I'm like, please delete them because they were terrible. Just delete them.
Oh, no.
But they make a lot of money. Don't kid yourself. Okay, I didn't mean to monopolize this. I'm sorry.
You're good. Thank you for sharing that story. I appreciate it. All right, let's ask that same question now of Brent. So, Brent, tell me about your pricing. What would it be? Would it be the same, more or less? You've touched on it already, but at the beginning of you're looking at starting over. What are you going to do right at the beginning? What is price? What's the importance of it?
Price would be probably the same as I did before. I found myself that I was kind of in the middle of the road as far as pricing was concerned, and I had about the right amount of business that I wanted for at the time. There's someone at my door. Excuse me just a second.
Oh.
Come back later. Come back later, please. Come back tomorrow. Yes, come back tomorrow. Yes. Yes.
Adding a little fun to the show. A little
yes.
Good time for a quick drink.
There you go. I wouldn't really necessarily change my pricing, but what I would do for advice is say, study the market. Who's low, who's high, what do they provide, and what's your skill level? How do you think you fit in there? And test the waters. Don't go too low, don't go too high, but find your medium in the middle there. You might be here, you might be a little bit higher or a little bit lower, but I wouldn't give any straight advice to anybody. I mean, back in the day, some of the old timers used to say, and by the way, I cut my teeth on this in the film days, okay? We did a RB 6x7 with a motorized back to do those quantity photos of proms and things, like exactly what David was talking about. We had a glass background screen to do projections on. In some of the high schools here in town, we would have 3 cameras going for 4 hours. I was working with Gelhar Photography, and that was a production line, and you wouldn't believe. You had a poser, you had the camera person, and you had 2 or 3 people working the tables. And we had a rule back in those days, it wouldn't go anymore now, but the poser always had to be a woman, because the guys in high school would get mad if you talked to their girlfriends. And it was a serious thing back then. I'm telling you, it was really something. But we would make, like back in the 80s, and we were making $40,000 a night, easy. And that was film.
that is interesting how some prices over the years have gone down for photographers. You'd think because of inflation, all of our prices would have gone up, but as new people come in, they continue to lower the price instead of adjusting to inflation. They started off all over again. Now they don't realize that they have that they to some degree know their price is low.
Mm-hmm.
However, um, back in the 80s, the first wedding I ever photographed was in 1983, and at that point, there were a lot of photographers under $1,000, but nobody was under 400.
Mm.
And now I come across people who are at 400 to photograph a wedding, or 500. This
Right.
was in the 80s, you guys. If you're watching and you have a price below 1,000 for a wedding, I question whether you've thought this through.
Yeah.
Because I can mathematically tell you, I can and I used to do this in my classroom. I would put up on the board all the different time that someone would spend on a wedding, and the average photographer. Now, some spend less time, some spend more time, so this is just an average. The average photographer spent up to 74 hours. Now that's total time. That's between phone calls. That's driving, doing site visits. That's crafting emails. That is everything. And you need to get paid for everything. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
if you were working for someone else, would you've gotten paid for all 74 of those hours? Yes, you would have. So
Yes.
why are you going to be the worst boss ever and not pay yourself for that time? And
Mm-hmm.
so what I found was, on average, about $2,000 is break-even point for a wedding photographer today.
Mhm.
Anything less than that, and you're going to have to cut some corners. Now, I'm not saying you can't do it, because you can. You can have a wedding that's less than that, and it depends on to what extent. If it's just some quick photographs at it's in front of the justice of the peace, and it's just a handful of photographs afterwards. All right, you can do that for pretty cheap. That's kind of just event work. So I'm not really including that. I'm talking about weddings, the stereotypical, the picture you have in your head.
Mm-hmm.
Average person will break even. Average photographer will break even at $2,000, and that's average. There's some who do it less, some who do it more. Mine was 12,000 for mine, and it didn't reduce the number. Now I gave people line item veto. They could.
Mm-hmm.
I had everything that was included in my package with a price next to it, and they could cross off the things they didn't want. And so they did do that. They had control. Yeah.
Good point, Jim.
So, man, thanks for bringing that up. I wasn't really thinking about what prices were then compared to now, and they haven't changed that much. And I think it's because we're basing prices off of feelings rather than off of the cost of goods sold and the time that we invest into it. This
I
is
think
what
you're right.
everybody else is charging, or this is what I think I should charge for. This is what I would pay if I was the customer. Well, you're a do-it-yourselfer. You're not a good judge of what the right price is supposed to be. All right. Thank you, Brent. I appreciate
Sure.
that. I'm going to ask the same question now of Miranda. So, Miranda, tell me about pricing. What would you do differently? What would you think about? What importance would you place on pricing as you begin?
I would definitely have gone with more. I
Yeah.
feel like I think a lot of it has to do with your own security and what you think you are capable of. Your worth, what you feel your worth is, not other people, but yourself. And so I would say I started extremely low. And working with a few other photographers as they were beginning, and I saw their prices even lower than what I started with. And talking with them and telling them, like, no, can't, you're never going to make it that way. And, you spend all your hours editing. There's just so much involved with it. And they raised their prices. I saw their confidence levels go up. And I kind of wish that would have happened for me when I first started. So, yeah, I would have definitely raised them.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think the majority of photographers, this is one of their major problems when they begin, and a lot of them never actually fix it.
Yeah.
They get to the point where they think that that photography isn't profitable, that you can't make a living in photography, which is completely incorrect. it couldn't be further from the truth. Almost every single time that I've seen photographers get close to that edge and go over the edge, one of the reasons has been their price is too low to actually be sustainable. And I remember a photographer years ago, and it caused me to write my first business program, photography business program. But she had made a post on Facebook that said, I am busy. I'm always busy. My calendar is full, and it has been full for this past year or more. I can't remember that amount of time. But she said, I'm so busy that my camera has died. I need to buy a new one, but I have no money in the bank. How's that possible? That was her post. And so that made it clear to me that it's not as obvious as I thought it was, how important pricing is. And so I wrote a class that was specifically about that, and how you could be completely busy in your photography business and be losing money.
Right.
So it's not about getting the business. That's important. Getting the business, being good at sales and marketing, absolutely important. But if your pricing isn't there, you didn't even give yourself a shot.
Right.
And most photographers are there. And they may think, well, if I raise my price, no one will hire me anymore. Well, you guys have heard in this show already multiple times, that's not true. Absolutely not true. You may have clients that complain about your price. In fact, I don't know that even at those lower prices, you probably have people complaining about your price. And so that shouldn't have any bearing on what your price is supposed to be.
Right. Everybody wants something free.
Yeah, that's the truth.
That's what I learned.
Well, thank you for your answer to that question. I appreciate it. Let's ask that same question now of David. All right. So let's see. Oh, wait. You know what? You get the next question. Because you're the third one to answer that question. So David, I called you in too soon. So the next question is, if you had to rebuild your client base, what strategies would you use to attract high quality clients and establish a strong reputation?
Networking. So same thing we talked about earlier about relationships. It would be relationships, not just the other way was with clients. And this would be finding, I would go to different kinds of seminars, and just try to meet people, network with them, and befriend them. I mean, that's what's happened actually to me. So that's what's kind of worked, is I was able to meet people, and I didn't think I was capable of that before. And I've learned now that it's all about meeting the right person or the right people, and them just referring you.
Yeah, that's good. That's a good point. A lot of photographers are a little on the introverted side. Would you say that you lean that direction?
Definitely. Yes.
Yeah.
I had to learn, I had to teach myself. So I'm like an extroverted introvert, just when I'm out there.
That's right. When you've got your camera, or when you're visiting with people about the work that you do, because you have a passion for it, you're all of a sudden going to turn that introvert into an extrovert. And so I would put that in. I'm silly sometimes. I call myself a high functioning introvert.
Yeah, that's the way I feel. And there's something about being able to hide behind your camera that just gives you like a superpower. It's like a cape.
You've got a passion, and anytime you have a passion for something, you love sharing it, and you love seeing the other people appreciate your passion. And so, it takes you out of that zone. But that's if and only if we put ourselves in a position to make that happen, which as introverts is hard to start.
Right. Right.
But,
and for those high quality clients, you got to be extroverted.
And it's not a matter of you forcing yourself, because you have the passion. So therefore it's just going to happen.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that, Miranda. All right, let's ask that same question now of David. So, David, now I'm asking you this question. If you had to rebuild your client base, what strategies would you use to attract high quality clients and establish a strong reputation?
Well, like Miranda said, networking is important. And I think the best advertising for photographers is word of mouth. I think you can run out all the ads you want, and it's just throwing money away because people don't hire photographers from ads. They hire from referrals and word of mouth. You can see on Facebooks all the time, I'm looking for a photographer. Can you recommend a photographer? And sometimes that becomes a little bit of a bidding war, and I tend not to do that as much, but it's mostly somebody say, yeah, I'm looking for a photographer. Well, I know this guy, he's great. And then you get the customer. And, there's, when you're starting out, you kind of have to do the I'm going to have to shoot for exposure, just like sometimes you have to play music for free and that's how you can start to get clientele. But then you need to wean yourself off of that as quick as you can. It's funny because this late in my career, which hadn't been a very long one, but I tend to now go back and do volunteer work, but it's strictly volunteer. Actually, I came down to San Antonio and I photographed at the Haven for Hope, and I photographed the battered women's shelter just because I wanted to. And it was no business in there whatsoever and nothing to be gained other than trying to do something for the community. That's it. It's always kind of a balancing act.
That's there are things, doing things for free it's a choice, but it needs to be a strategic one.
Right.
It's something that you may choose to do at the beginning to help gain that a relationship with someone, or to grow your portfolio, or it's an organization that you believe strongly in, and this is the way that you contribute to the cause.
Yeah, and people will take advantage of you. I can remember photographing first starting out. These two wives had a collegiate business for like little toddlers and stuff. They wanted me to photograph this thing, and man, it was murder. And then I asked what their volume was, and they said around $5 million. I'm like, and you can't pay a photographer? I mean, oh, we're going to put you all over Facebook and give you credit and stuff like that. And I'm like, okay, yeah, thanks. Which, I mean, but that's how you learn. I mean, it's called paying your dues, and we all had to pay our dues. Didn't you, Jim? When you started out, you pay your dues?
Of course.
Absolutely. We all do. But then you got to know when to stop. And then when to again, and then, once you're established and all, it's great to give back to the community, and it could be a strategic business decision, or it can just be because you want to do something nice. And when I photographed for the battered women's shelter, I did that so that these, it's very secretive. They don't, you have to go in through the back and you can't tell me where you are, but I wanted these families to be able to have nice pictures for the holidays. And that's it. That was it. That there was no ulterior motive whatsoever. And I learned a lot about the place. So anyway, yeah, I guess that doesn't really help much with the customer retention and things like that. But, here again, growing up with retail, what we always did was we always captured all the information that we could well before there were computers and barcodes and things, because the more information we kept for customers, the better we could reach them to try and get them come back and have new business. And I think that's kind of the same thing for photography too. You need to have a computer program, whether it's Constant Contact or MailChimp or whatever. And I'm not good at these, but yeah, to have a database, and so you can reach these people, and and then not just to be able to reach out, for Valentine's Day shoot, for an Easter shoot, for a back to school shoot, for senior pictures, senior portraits rather, that kind of thing. Holiday cards. I'll be busy this Christmas until December 18th when I have foot surgery, because that's the last time I can have it. I'm going to miss that last part for anything I schedule. I have to schedule really early for holiday shoots.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for sharing that. I appreciate it, David. I'm going to ask the same question now of Brent. So, Brent, if you had to start over, rebuild your client base.
You lost me for a second. Are you
there?
We
go.
Okay.
So if you had to rebuild I did too. If you have to rebuild your client base, what strategies are you going to use this time?
If I had to rebuild my client base, what I would do is well, let's go all the way to the beginning. I'm just starting. I got to build a new client base. I'm like, one, I'm going to go find my friends that I want to shoot with, and I'm going to shoot their photograph and make their portraits and make their kids' portraits so that I have great samples. I'm going to print those samples. I'm not just going to put them on electronic. I'm going to print them. People love things in their hands. Then once I've got some samples to walk around and show people, whatever, what I'm going to do is I'm going to target specific groups of people. If it means I have to join Key Club or whatever it is, I'm going to do that. I'm going to volunteer for things where I'll be working to meet people. I'll be doing a good job because I volunteered to do something, and it's something that should be done. We should all volunteer for something in our lives. And then I'll begin to make a network of people that I'm showing these photos to. See what I did the other day? Did you see? Look at this. I love the way this turned out with this light on this girl's face, you know? And pretty soon somebody's going, can you do that for me? And you get people who want to pay you. And you give them the price, and if you're reasonable and they're reasonably inclined, you're going to start building a clientele. And if you make it so that you can charge a little bit more, that's always better. And what Jim said a while ago, it was boost your self-confidence, because if you charge a little more, you're going to be more confident in yourself too. And the customer actually is going to do a lot better. It's like tires. You can go buy some very, very good tires for less than you can buy the name brand tire. But people will go buy the name brand tire even if it costs a third more or half again more, because it costs more, so it must be better. So they think they're paying for a quality, they're going to pay for it. So that's what I would do. I would go out there and take my samples and talk about and just say, I'm excited, I'm doing this thing. And people will get excited with you, and they'll want to participate by hiring you to do their photography.
Exactly. Perfect. Thanks for that, Brent. I've got the next question for you. And before I do that, you guys, when you're hearing something you like, click that like button, click that love button. We can see what you're doing there, and we want to see that. Click another the like button and the love button. I can on my screen, I can see something that shows where they're out of the 8 places that we're simulcast to, it shows which one has the most in it, and on that one, it shows only 6 loves and likes. So, hey, you guys, if you're liking what our panelists are saying, click that like button, click that love button, make a comment in the comments section. All right, so here's the next question, Brent. What lessons have you learned about prioritizing and time management?
Oh, that's a tough question, Jim. I'm still learning. What I've learned is I'm still learning, and I'll never stop learning about that. Prioritizing. Make customers your first priority, always. Make communication with them your first priority. If you have to pay somebody to do the lab work and the retouching and everything, so you have enough time to talk to your customers, then do so. Now, I'm a hands-on kind of guy, and I bite my tongue every time I say that about it, but it's true. You've got to prioritize your clients. They want quality work, and they want to deal with a person who's willing to talk to them all the time. And if you could do that, you're going to do all right. So I would prioritize the amount of time I spend with the customers. That means I've got to do an extra 30 minutes in an hour photo session. I don't bill by hour, by the way, but if that's what I want to do, I'm going to give the extra time to the customer, and I can pay somebody else to do it. I'll sleep while somebody else does that work. I don't do that now, but that's what I would have done back then if I had to redo it.
Nice. Well, thank you, Brent.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to ask that same question now of Miranda. So, Miranda,
Yes.
what lessons have you learned in your career so far about prioritizing and time management?
Learn to say no. That was a tough one for me because I'm a yes girl. So learning to say no to photo shoots that were taking time for my family or for myself, um, and doing a lot of just free stuff for people. Um, that was a big one for me.
I think a lot of people would answer that same way. Now, I mean, we love what we do. We want to share what we do. We enjoy it when other people enjoy what we do. And so, of course, we want more of that. And so that's why, yes, comes so easily. But if we don't have something already, if we don't have a plan, it's kind of like I say this all the time. If you had you decided you wanted to go somewhere on a road trip and pick a place, because you said, I want to go there. Now, it may be to visit a friend. It may be that they have some kind of an event or a festival, or maybe they have an antique shop that you want to go see. Who knows what it is, but you've defined the destination. What does that give you? In defining a destination, it gives you the potential to reach the destination. Too many of us photographers don't define our destination when it comes to any part of our business. Maybe one little small part of it, but not the entire thing. So therefore, when we define where it is that we're going, we give ourselves potential to get there, because now we can plan a path to get there. And those good things that take us off the path, we still recognize them as good things. But because they aren't right, we don't do them. We
Right.
stay on the path that causes us to reach our goals. So how do you feel about that? Is that what you're saying with your
Yeah.
time management?
Yes, definitely. Yeah, I have to
Awesome.
stay focused.
Awesome. Yeah. Yep. Okay, good. Thank you very much for that, Miranda. All right, let's ask that same question now of let's see. Who did I just say? Oh, David. So David,
Hey,
you've had more than one career. This is probably something that you can look back easily at,
yeah,
the
it wasn't
things
that
that
long
you've
ago.
learned. Well, all the different things that you've done throughout your life, you've probably had to be good with prioritizing and time management.
Well,
So
I think for time management, and this is not so much business sense, but for photo shoots, the one thing I advise people is to slow down. And I'll tell you why. First of all, when the more we rush a shoot, the worse we do. And it's sometimes when we're trying to get things framed in camera or get our settings right, or whatever, and it's like you're up on a stage and you think everybody's looking at you. They're really not. And while it might seem like it's an hour to you, it's not to people looking at you. So take time to try and get it right. But usually, like I have a fairly decent senior picture business, and a lot of these kids I've never met. Some of them I know through my kids' friends, but I've never met them. So when they show up with or without parent, if they're with parents, I send the parents away. And I sit down for about 10 minutes and just chat with them. It's the best 10 minutes I could ever spend, because I get to know them a little bit better. They get to know me. I show them my camera, how it works. What do you want? What do you like? What kind of sports do you? Where are you going to go to school? Where do you study? Do you have a girlfriend or a boyfriend? Just to relax them, so that when I start to give them direction, they're taking direction not from a stranger, but from somebody that they maybe might feel that they've known. So if I'm going to do schedule an hour for a shoot, I'm only shooting maybe half that time, and the rest of the time I'm talking, joking, learning, relaxing my clients. And then on the back end, like Brent was saying, editing, we all tend to be artists, and we want to touch every aspect of our art and our pictures and everything. And I'm no different. Even in the volume school business, I still had to go through and look at every damn picture, make sure that the color correction was right, make sure I had it centered right for the damn yearbooks. And that's a whole nother story, yearbooks. But anyway, but I'm not very good at really difficult Photoshop. I can do several minor things in there, but if I have something really difficult, I'm not spending time to do something that I'm going to do a crappy job at. So I send that to retouchup.com, and it might cost $5 or $10, but it's the best money I'll ever spend, because if it's not right, they'll redo it, and they do a good job. And I know there's other retouchers, and I know in the real estate business, people that photograph houses for a living, half of them send them all out to retouchers in Vietnam or something that do them for 60 cents each or whatever. And now with AI coming around, and I just did a whole seminar on AI, that's a whole nother story. I don't know if you want to get into that, Jim. You can do a whole program on that. It's not there yet, but it's coming. But anyway, that would be my biggest advice to people, especially starting out, is calm down and slow down.
Calm down and slow down. Nice.
You save yourself a lot of time fixing screw ups that, you know, in fact, like I was telling you when I was in Paris last summer and I saw the street shot and that's very rare that you actually have time to go up and photograph it. Usually they happen quick, but she was just standing there and I walked in front of her, I walked around and I just checked the settings on my camera to make sure, because I knew once I pulled my camera up, I was going to shoot real quick. So I made sure I was shooting really, really fast. So I put it at 500th of a second because I knew I knew it was going to be a great shot. And once I looked at it and I just did one, I said, it's good. I don't need another one. But because I took my time, I got my shot, if that makes sense. And that's different than portraits, but just calm down and slow down.
Sounds simple.
Well,
so I like it. Awesome. All right. So we are nearing the end of this discussion today. And so I want to do one more thing with each one of you. And that is, I want you to give me your closing thoughts, but I want you to include a quote, either the best advice you've ever received or a best quote, in addition to your closing thoughts for today's show.
Okay. I have lots of good quotes that I've heard over my career. My closing thoughts are, I'm so glad that you're doing this. I just think it's great to have open discussion. And, you know, I mean, we're in a digital world and things like this are just awesome. I'm a big believer in education, even though I'm self-taught. But then you realize, well, yeah, but I'm only as good as my teacher, and that's not very good. So I go to classes and things like that, and, you know, as best I can. But I'm going to do 3 kind of best advice things that I got, if I may. The first one was actually when I was in the clothing business. There's this old guy who used to come in, fabulously wealthy. He would come in all the time. I don't know what he did for a living, but we're talking about just gaining business. He would always come in and buy several $1,000s worth of clothes. I never ever saw him wear them. But he said, business is simple. He said, you bait your hook and drop it where the fish are biting. And I thought, well, that's pretty brilliant. And it's true. Bait your hook where the fish are biting. You're not going to go, you know, set up a real estate business where it's just a bunch of apartment buildings and this stuff like that. So I thought that was good. The second one was, early in my career, there's a portrait photographer who works a lot in Dallas and Los Angeles. He photographs lots of celebrities. So I invited him to lunch and he told me this. I don't know if I can actually quote him, but he said, look, he said, people come up to you all the time and go, oh yeah, I'm going to have you do this. I'm going to have you shoot this. Or, you know, I have this ranch. I want you to come photograph this, all this stuff. And he said, don't get too excited because only about 1/3 of that is ever going to happen. And he's absolutely right, because you have people, I used to go, I go home and tell them, oh my gosh, these people are going to have me photograph this or going to have that. And you never hear from them again, or you call them and they dodge you or whatever. Sometimes they work about 1/3 of the time. So when somebody says, yeah, I'm going to have you do this, I'm like, that's great. And in the back of my mind, I go, if it ever happens. And if it does, that's great. And if it doesn't, that's okay, because I get it. And the third thing, when you get my friend in Austin here, who here again is very accomplished, and when you get a very established in your career, and he said, look, and this was a while ago, but he said, I don't pick up my camera and walk out the door for less than $270. And what he's telling me there is, I'm going to pick and choose what I do. And if this is not a shoot, I don't care. I really don't even care how much they're going to give me. If I don't want to do it, I'm not going to do it, because I kind of don't have to. A lot of us aren't in that position yet, but he happened to be there. But I thought about that. Have a minimum price that you're willing to work for. I turned down a job lady called me and said, would I show up at the outdoor pool for an hour at 3 p.m. on a Saturday and photograph a bunch of adults doing a party? And I said, no. I didn't say no. I said, I'm busy on taking that day, but she couldn't pay me enough to do that. I wouldn't do that for less than $1,000, standing out in the hot sun photographing a bunch of half-naked people splashing around in a pool. Are you kidding me? At my age? No, I'm not going to do that. But I was polite about declining that job. So anyway, I hope I didn't overuse my time there, Jim.
Well,
Sorry.
it's a good example. We all need to know when to say no.
Know when to say no. Yeah, like Miranda said, learning to say no. I'm
Right.
like, no, I'm not going to do that. I mean, I could have given her a price. Yeah, I'll do it for $1,500, and then I'm kind of a jerk. And so I just said, no, I'm busy. And but no, there's no way I was going to do that. Sorry.
No, that's good. That's good. Thank you, David, and thank you for sharing your time and your experiences, your expertise with us today.
Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it.
I appreciate that. And you're going to be one of the judges at the kids tournament coming up, and
I'll be there.
Just under 2 weeks.
Oh yeah,
so I'll mention that here in just a moment. But for those of you who are watching, we have the annual San Antonio photography tournament, and we have a kids version that's coming up on the 23rd, and we're going to have 10 judges, and one of those judges is David Rubin.
Yeah, and my ulterior motive for doing that is here in Dallas, I don't care what they say, they do not have breakfast tacos here. They're disgusting. They are disgusting, and I miss that. Any chance I can go back to San Antonio and get some decent Tex-Mex food, I'm there. So I'm glad to do it.
Awesome. Thank you, David.
Thank you.
All right, let's bring on, let's see, Brent. So Brent, do you have any quotes or some best advice you've ever received, in addition to share with us your closing thoughts for this show today?
The best advice that I ever heard, and I tell people this all the time: if you love your work, it's not work. So don't just choose a field that, oh, I can make a lot of money there. Because if you like what you do, you're going to make money anyway. It's going to just come. It happens. Second advice, I would say price, because there was a very accomplished aerial photographer back in the day. First name was Tony, and every time I saw Tony, and he would be at the PPSA meetings and so on, and this is in the 80s now. And Tony would say, it's all about the money. If you're not charging enough to keep food on the table, you're not charging enough. And he carried a wad of bills this big, okay, in his pocket. And that was his emphasis, that if you can't do that, you're not charging enough money. That stuck with me. But the thing is do what you love. That's more of it. You don't like weddings, don't do weddings. If you like kids, do it. By all means, do as many kids as you want. But, everybody doesn't have to be a jack of all trades. So do what you want to do. If you love being a jack of all trades in photography, sure, go for it. One other thing I would say, buy good glass for your cameras. I don't care whether you're using tiny sensors or a full frame sensor. Get good glass. And buy your glass looking towards using a full frame sensor, but use good glass because it makes for sharp images. That's all I could tell you. Love what you do and keep doing it.
Sounds great to me. And thank you for sharing your knowledge, the experiences that you've had, the different stories that you've shared with us, and also thanks for the last minute acceptance of being a panelist.
No problem. I will tell you more about the last minute today later.
I am interested. All right. Well, thank you so much. I'm going to bring on Miranda, and I guess that means she gets the final word.
I guess so.
So, Miranda,
no pressure at all.
That's right. You're the panelist with the closing thoughts. I've got more I'm going to share afterwards, because I need to tell people what the announcements are and what I'll mention what the next 2 upcoming shows are going to be. But you're the last panelist to share their thoughts. So if you've got some advice, maybe the best advice you've ever received, or a quote that you want to share, and then share your closing thoughts for today.
All right. About 8 years ago, I went to a photography seminar, and a man came up to me and was asking me why I wanted to do what I did and asked me what I was charging. And it was you, actually. And you told me that I needed to figure out my life plan and figure out how much I needed to make that happen, and then divide that by months and then by my photo shoots. So I don't know, just that one conversation kind of changed a lot of things for me. I haven't quite gotten there yet, but that was probably one of the best things I learned as far as money was concerned. And then I guess going back to building relationships, hanging around successful people, also because you can learn from them. You can learn how they do what they do, and keep learning. I think we can just keep learning because everything keeps changing. Technology, our cameras, everything. So that's what I would end with.
Aw. That makes me feel good. Thank you for sharing that. That's
Of
awesome.
course.
So thank you so much for sharing your thoughts, your experiences, and taking time to do this. I mean, all three of you have other things that you need to be doing, and you're here. You're uplifting the photography community. So I want to thank you for doing that. And I'm going to bring on all three of you guys here at one time. Let's bring on Brent, and let's bring on David. And for one last time, thank you guys so much for being here today. You are adding so much to the photography community by doing this and other things you do. I know this isn't the only thing, but this is the most recent thing. And I appreciate you having that value of uplifting people who are maybe where you're at, maybe who are just starting out or somewhere in between. Thank you for your willingness to share your thoughts, your experiences, your stories, and uplifting the photography community.
You're welcome.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Enjoyed it, Jim. Always like
And
to
nice
share.
to meet you guys.
Yes, likewise.
Well, I'm going to do a quick screenshot, so I want everybody to wave at the same time.
I don't want my hand to be fuzzy. I'm going to keep it.
That's funny. All right, so I got that. Got it, and I'll be sending that to you later if you want it. You don't have to have it, of course. But of course, this show is recorded. Someone could go back in the feed on the Facebook page or the YouTube page or the LinkedIn page that they're watching it on. It sits in that feed, so you could go back and watch it. But thank you guys once again for sharing your time and experiences with us today.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
You guys rock. Thank you so much. All right, I'm going to take them off and share with you guys some things that are coming up. Because as you know, the Portrait Profit Show happens every single Monday. But I've got a couple of ones coming up that I think you're really going to like. And before I do that, I have a couple of announcements that I want to share with you. The first we talked about just a moment ago because David Rubin's one of the judges, but we have the annual San Antonio Photography Tournament. This is the kids version. The regular version that most of you guys watching are probably going to be more interested in is in October. So be on the lookout for that. But if you've got kids or you know someone who has kids, this is a fun event, and it happens in just under 2 weeks. It's Sunday, the 23rd this month, and it's going to be at Confluence Park. You can see that there on the flyer that's sitting here next to me right now. But we've partnered with the San Antonio River Foundation. And this gives us access to Confluence Park and the river to be able to have this event. This is an instant gratification photographers challenge, meaning the photographers, the participants come out with their cameras. They get a list of categories that they can participate in. They go out and they photograph any categories, any number that they want to participate in. They can turn in one per category, so they can participate in all. They can participate in one or two, and that's totally up to them. But they have to submit their photographs, and before noon. At noon, the judges are doing their thing and making choices on who the winners are going to be, because at a little after 1 o'clock, we're going to start announcing all the winners. Now, this is from ages 5 to 15. So and we're going to break that up into 3 age groups. So we don't want 6-year-olds having to compete with 14-year-olds. So the 5 to 8 will be the first ones that we announce. We'll announce all the winners, first, second, and third in each category, and then a grand champion and a runner-up overall. And then we'll move into the 9 to 12 and do the same thing after that. And then the 13 to 15 and do the same thing with them. And they'll get their certificates when we announce their names. They'll get prizes when we announce their names. And when it's done, when we're finished announcing all the winners, it's over. It's done. It's not like it's going to be a Facebook liked contest to see who's the most popular person in the group. Nope. The judges are making the decisions and we're sharing it immediately. That's why we call it an instant gratification photography tournament. And this one is for the kids. And if you want to volunteer, we could use some people that day. Volunteers arrive about 6:30 in the morning, and having some setup and some traffic directing, making sure people go where they need to go. Yeah, we could use a few more. I think we have about 40, somewhere between 35 and 40 volunteers right now. We could use a couple more. So reach out to me, Jim@landersphotoschool.com, if you want to participate. Jim@landersphotoschool.com. And the let's see, the next show, and again, we do this. I'm going to take that off right now. We do the Portrait Profit show every single Monday, even if it's a holiday. Yeah, sometimes it's a holiday where I have to pre-record it, but for the most part, it's live every single Monday. And the one that's coming up here in the next couple of the next 2 I'm going to share with you real quick. The first one is something that David mentioned just a moment ago, and it's about AI. And the question is AI coming for portrait photography? I don't think that it is, but we're going to discuss it. We're also going to talk about planning for the future, to make sure that we're optimizing the tools that we have and what it is that we're looking for. So, yep, we're going to be talking about AI next week, and then the week after that. So put that on your calendar. So that is, and I'll put that on the screen real quick. That is, where is that? Right there. So July 17th at noon is AI coming for portrait photography. All right. On the 24th, we have another one, and this one is called How to Make Portrait Photography Equal Success ASAP. So we're going to talk about some things that we do that really take up a lot of our time but aren't helping us. And that doesn't mean that we don't do them. It means we don't prioritize them. We need to prioritize those things that help us get business right away. Now, some of you are in a position where you can spend more time with the things that don't actually bring in business. Others of you could use some business right away. This is going to help you out. So make sure to put July 24th at noon on your calendar, because that is when we're going to be talking about how to make portrait photography equal success ASAP. That is in 2 weeks from today. All right. Hope you have enjoyed the show. Our fantastic experts have shared their wealth of knowledge and experiences, leaving us with lots of valuable insights and practical steps. We hope that the discussions throughout the show have inspired you and empowered you. As you know, success in portrait photography is not about technical skill. It's not as much about technical skill as it is about continuing your photography education. Or it will continue, that's important too, but it's not even as important as building genuine connections with your clients. So as you apply the tips that you've heard our panelists share, I hope your journey towards your definition of success is filled with creativity, fulfillment, and of course, prosperity. Thank you for joining us. And until next time, keep capturing those beautiful moments. Thank you for your time and attention here today. And thank you for the efforts that you make to be such an amazing portrait photographer. I encourage you to like and share the Portrait Profit Show. And of course, tune into our next live stream a week from today at noon. Together, we help each other achieve goals and to make a difference in the world through our passion for portrait photography. Do me a favor in the comment section, real quick, right now. Enter in something nice about our panelists. Tell them thank you for being here. And you can thank me for having the show if you want to, but I want you to say something positive about what you've done here today. And I'm only going to give you a few seconds to do it. So make it quick, because those that come up right now, the ones that I see that are saying thank you, or I appreciate those panelists, or keep it coming, or whatever you have to say, I'm going to post them in a little bit after the show. I'm going to have some music running in it and our background, and I'm going to post some of those comments. So post them right now. Hit that like button, hit that love button. And thanks once again for investing your time here at the Portrait Profit Show. For Landers Photography School and Digital Pro Lab, my name is Jim Landers, and I bring you the weekly Portrait Profit Show with evolving content, awareness, and even fun to the business side of portrait photography, with tips and insights to help you with the struggles you deal with now, so you are constantly realigned to the path that leads you to the success you deserve. Thank you for investing your time here at the Portrait Profit Show. Thank you, guys. Bye for now.